There's a belief that quietly derails a lot of conscious creators, and it often sounds like this: I can't feel what it would be like to have my desire because I've never experienced it before. On the surface, it seems logical. If you've never had the money, the relationship, the lifestyle, how can you possibly recreate the feeling of something unfamiliar? But here's the truth: you don't actually need to have lived a specific scenario to access the emotion associated with it. Why? Because there are only a handful of core emotional experiences that we underpin everything we go through as humans. Whether it's joy, sadness, fear, anger, surprise, or love, these emotional primaries are like colours. We mix them in different combinations to create a full spectrum of emotional life. But the building blocks remain the same. And crucially, every human being, regardless of their background or personal history, has already got those basic emotions. Even if your conscious mind tells you otherwise, your nervous system has recorded those feelings. Maybe you haven't felt joy in the context of a romantic relationship, but you felt joy. Maybe you've never known financial freedom, but you've experienced relief or ease or safety in other moments. And that's what really matters. The misunderstanding comes when people believe they need to manufacture a completely foreign emotional state to manifest a new reality. That's not how it works. You're not trying to invent something new. You're simply reapplying a familiar tone to the new mental picture. And that starts not with the feeling, but actually the thinking.
That's the key shift. Realizing that thoughts lead and emotions follow. Every emotional reaction you've ever had was triggered by a thought. Whether that thought was conscious or unconscious, it came first. You pictured something, interpreted something, imagined a scenario, and then your body responded with emotion. Let's take fear, for example. You don't just fear randomly. You imagine danger. You anticipate loss. You mentally construct something going wrong, and then your nervous system kicks in. Same with joy. Before the feeling of joy arrives, there's usually a thought of something going right, a sense of connection, a hopeful outcome. You think it first, and then the emotion takes shape. So when people say, I don't know how to feel like my desire is already mine, what they're really saying is, I haven't practiced thinking from a perspective of having it. And once you understand that, everything changes. You stop trying to force a feeling into existence, and instead, you deliberately train your mind to think as the version of you who already has it. This is what Neville Goddard called living in the end. But it's not about pretending or emotionally performing. It's not about feeling euphoric on demand. It's about constructing a consistent mental state that reflects your fulfilled desire. The version of you who already has what they want doesn't necessarily feel constant excitement. They feel certainty. They feel stability. They think different thoughts. And when these thoughts settle in, the right emotions rise naturally, subtly, and without strain.
And that's where a lot of people get tripped up. They confuse emotional intensity with emotional alignment. But manifesting isn't about chasing a high. You don't need fireworks or bliss to create a new reality. In fact, most people who are genuinely living in the end aren't walking around in a constant emotional buzz. They're just thinking from a different baseline. That baseline might feel like calm or relief or quiet satisfaction. It might be a sense of normality around something that once felt out of reach. And that's exactly the point. When your desire feels ordinary to your mind, when it no longer feels distant or dramatic even, you're in alignment. Not because you feel euphoric, but because you've accepted it as done. And often you've already felt the emotions you're trying to access. You felt peace when a situation was resolved. You felt warmth in a connection with a friend. You felt safety, even if for only a moment. Your body knows these states. Your subconscious holds the memory. You're not trying to fabricate something foreign. You're simply transferring something familiar into a new imagined reality. So rather than asking, how do I feel it? The better question is, how would I think, act, and respond if this were already true? And when you stay with that question long enough, the feelings catch up, organically, not forced.
That's an important clarification. You're not emotionally blocked. You're not missing anything. The only real block is the belief that you are. When you stop trying to force an emotion that feels unavailable and instead shift your focus to thinking as if it's already yours, everything starts to move. And here's where the magic happens. Your external world starts to reflect that shift. Not because you hit the right emotional frequency in some perfect way, but because your inner narrative changed. You began to tell a new story internally. You stopped identifying as someone who lacks and started identifying as someone who has. From that shift, your assumptions change yourself. Your assumptions change, as well as your self-talk. Your reactions to everyday events change, and those subtle internal movements are what shape your external world. Not emotion alone, but thought, assumption, and identity. So if you've been stuck waiting for the right feeling to arrive, let that go. The feeling is not the cause, it's the result. Start with the thought, the assumption, the mental position of already having it, and then allow whatever emotions arise to support that. Not as proof, but as natural byproducts of a shifted mind.
So don't overcomplicate it. You don't need to be emotionally perfect. You don't need to manufacture excitement. You don't need to wait for some mystical feeling to land before you believe it's possible. Just return to the foundations. The mind leads, the body follows. You've already felt every emotional note you'll ever need. You're just applying those notes to a new melody. The moment you stop doubting your emotional access and start trusting your ability to think from the end, you unlock the whole process. Not with effort, not with intensity, but with quiet clarity. Manifesting isn't about trying to feel more. It really is about thinking differently. And when your thoughts shift, the emotions shift. And when your emotions shift, your world responds.
If you found this helpful, give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell so you don't miss future videos. Share this with someone who needs to hear it, and let us know your thoughts and comments. We always appreciate hearing how this lands for you. Until next time, think differently, dream boldly, and create consciously.